Andrew Breitbart, he had a saying that politics is downstream of culture. And so what we're seeing, at least here in Idaho, is the politics being downstream of what culture is here in Idaho. So the politics are that we're defining men and women. We're saying that you can't use public money to have gender-altering surgeries. And so it's exciting for me to see our Idaho legislatures moving in that direction, because that means that culture has been and continues to change, which is super exciting.
Good morning, Idaho. Welcome to the Local Yokel Idaho podcast, where we talk about what is going on in the wonderful state of Idaho. For those tuning in for the first time, we like to have a little banter before we get into the stories, but I understand if you're short on time, so we provided the timestamps in the description so you can jump straight to the stories that you're interested in. With that said, for those that stayed with us, welcome to the show and welcome to the banter. Probably one of my favorite times to have, kind of a little bit more casual. Hope you all had a great week. I know mine has been crazy. For any of you guys in politics, you probably know I'm recording this Thursday of last week. So, that lead up to the primary. And I think we'll have 2 interviews that will hopefully make it out before the 21st, but we'll see. We'll see how hard we want to run ourselves here. But it's been a very good week, a very productive week, but a very, very busy one. But with that said, the man who is also very busy, John, my producer, is co-hosting with me again today.
Yeah, I am here, and you're right. It's been a busy week. We were talking right before we started recording. I have now umpired for Little League Baseball 3 games in the last 4 days, and I'm lined up for another one in a couple days. And as anyone in the Treasure Valley knows, it's hot.
Yes.
Or at least last week. Let's see, when this comes out, last week was hot. So yeah, tiring, but that's all right. It's good to get outside, get some vitamin D.
Right.
Because apparently that's a good thing. I don't know.
The Lord had a thought process there. Granted, when I was driving back, traffic was also horrible in the valley this week. I swear everyone collectively decided to make traffic worse. But I quickly asked the Google Assistant in my car, because I have Android Auto. And I went and looked at it, and I asked it, okay, what's the weather currently in McCall? So we had, today being Thursday, it was I think the high was 82 or something like that. I went and looked it up. McCall was 50, 53,
oh man,
50 something. And I was just sitting there driving being we did a segment on it. I know we did. And if you want to go watch, I can't remember the number for it, but we did a segment talking about how crazy Idaho's different weather systems can be, and how it can be so different. One moment it's 2-3 feet deep worth of snow up at Stanley, and then the next minute down the valley it's boiling. But it always still amazes me how great that dynamic is, that I could drive from Boise, and I don't know, it's about a 2-hour drive to McCall from the valley, and I get a 30-40 degree difference in that great of a space.
Swing. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and I having lived out east for a while, you get some of that variation, like the difference between being on the coast or being in the mountains. And I say mountains for people out here. You look at the Appalachians and you go, those are foothills, but they're mountains anyway. But yeah, the mountains are nice. Yeah, whatever. The Appalachian foothills. Anyone from the Appalachian range is going to kill me for that, but whatever. Yeah, there's a difference, but it's not as crazy as this. And then Michigan basically was the same everywhere.
Right.
Maybe it's windier on the coast, but not really different. But living in Albuquerque, living in New Mexico, there was a great temperature difference. You go from Albuquerque and south and it gets hotter, and you go north and it gets cooler, just because you're in the mountains. And and you're going up in elevation, and you're changing it. And so this living here does still remind me a lot of New Mexico in terms of the temperature variation. So yeah, but dude, it's awesome. I love it.
Especially
it's a cool place.
For the valley. We're right on the edge there of a desert. So I'm probably guessing similarly there with Albuquerque. You've got the mountain range kind of to one corner, one side of you, and then you have the desert and that dynamic that plays between the two. Yeah.
The difference being Albuquerque is a little more aggressive in its temperatures than than here in the Treasure Valley. So, where here we have a little bit of humidity, there you have like less, next to no humidity. Here we have
heavenly.
yeah, no, it's great. And there's no bugs. I mean, I take that back. There's like tarantulas and black widows and what?
Scorpions?
Oh yeah, definitely scorpions. Having lived there as long as we did, I never saw them. Cockroaches, definitely cockroaches.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for the lack of bugs we have here in Idaho. I mean, we do, but compared to like going to Nashville or back east or somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Just you're like sitting in the car, and if the car's parked for long enough, you just see stuff on the outside moving around. And I'm used to that to a certain degree. If you go into the mountains anywhere, right, you'll have that a little bit here in Idaho. But
there's bugs.
it's not the same degree.
Oh my gosh, I remember going back to. So I spent freshman year in Michigan in college. So we moved down to New Mexico after I graduated from high school, and then I went back up there for freshman year. Anyway, I went to a friend's house for dinner one night, and they ate outside that night. And I was like, well, that's odd, because we do that in New Mexico, but there's nothing around. We're getting out there, and they've got like 3 porch lights on the wall, and all the light is being eaten up by the swarm of bugs that are just like hovering around this light. It's like, gosh, it's really dark out here because of that. Because of like just this
The mass of organic
bugs.
matter.
I was like, that's gross. I'm good. I'm done with. I'm not hungry anymore. That's gross.
I've seen the stuff from the Midwest where some guys are like, oh yeah, we're going to have some people over for your yard and you want to enjoy your nice yard or whatever else that you have there. And then they'll go around the edges of the yard and have these like jury-rigged like propane tanks.
Yep.
And then you light those and then they're just burning. And then it's, it's carbon dioxide, I think it is what attracts the mosquitoes. And so they all come and they're just like shoveling mosquitoes away.
Yep.
And then it gives you a break for like a day until they can repopulate everything in the area.
When we lived in Virginia, we got like a concentrated garlic spray that would keep the mosquitoes away, and it legitimately worked really well. But the stuff was gross, but kept the mosquitoes away, and it wasn't toxic. Toxic. It wasn't toxic. It was just garlic. So also we kept the vampires away.
I mean, kill 2 myths with one. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Mosquitoes are a myth. No, I'm pretty sure they exist. People like, yes, birds. They're actually spying on us. They're drones. You're like,
yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
That one's such a good conspiracy. Have you heard the story behind that one?
I have
The
not
birds?
delved into the depths of that
Oh my
yet.
gosh, that one's great. So there was like a women's rally or something going on, and so you had
of course it's
hordes
good.
of women holding signs as whatever women power. And so this guy who lived in the area, like he lived in a house that was just overlooking this thing. He's like, oh, I should go down and be a part of this, but I don't really care about what they're doing. I'm just going to hold a sign. And so he wrote on the sign, birds aren't real, or birds are robots, or whatever it was. And he held the sign, and that's what he was doing. He's just holding this stupid sign, and it became a thing. And so then he kept going to rallies and holding his sign, and it became a conspiracy theory.
You have guys that study marketing up and down. They're constantly trying to get a thing to work, all this different stuff. They spend hours, as an entrepreneur, their whole work is trying to have some viral thing, something to work and to launch and find a process. Guys just like, yeah, I went outside and I stuck a sign saying birds are robots, and voila, I did it.
And it became a thing. It's great. I love it.
Well,
no, that actually does bring us into our story, because we're talking women's marches, and who else marches for causes than the LGBTQ plus AIP whatever community.
You've got to be understanding of their feelings and tolerant and respectful at all times.
Correct. I don't think I said anything offensive there.
Nope.
But then again, who knows?
We live in
I
a
don't
traditional
determine what's
state.
offensive.
Either we'll gain more people and shun the people we don't want,
Right?
or I will be shocked.
Yeah.
So our first story here, as we teased, Idaho bill breakdown, House Bill 668, no public funds for gender transitions. So this is a reoccurring segment we're doing on the show here, Idaho bill breakdown. In this series, we've been going through and breaking down bills that have been signed and how they will affect you. Last week, we talked about House Bill 421, which states legally there are only two genders, male and female. This week, we'll be looking at House Bill 668, which is very similar. If you're either male or female, why are we funding gender transitions and why is Medicaid paying for poor people to do it? Well, the legislature answer to this is, well, we won't with House Bill 668. We'll be unpacking what it states, the changes, and how it will affect you. But first, starting off with that first part there, John, do you want to tell us what this bill says?
Yeah, sure. So in simple terms, this bill prevents tax dollars from being used to pay for a person to get gender surgeries or treatments after July 1st, 2024, when it goes into effect. Now, the longer answer is that it's achieved in two ways. The first is by prohibiting the use of any public funds, including Medicaid, to pay for gender-affirming medications and surgeries for both adults and minors in Idaho. Second, and related, the bill also prohibits using any state-owned facilities to provide gender-affirming surgeries or procedures. Now, the bill does have some exceptions. One, when care is deemed medically necessary for reasons other than gender affirmation. Two, to treat infections, injuries, or disorders caused by previous gender-affirming procedures. Or three, when done in accordance with a parent or guardian's decision for a child born with a genetic disorder of sex development. So now that we know what the bill does, we need to have context if we're going to understand it. Now, before House Bill 668 was signed into law, that's the bill we're talking about here, Idaho did not have any specific restrictions or regulations on using public funds like Medicaid to cover gender-affirming care for transgender adults or minors. Gender-affirming care could include medications like hormone therapy or puberty blockers, as well as surgeries. So, Tyler, what does this mean moving forward?
So great question. What does it all mean? How does it really apply to you? Well, first off, I would say it means that the legislature is being consistent. Like we talked about last week, they're again not wanting to try to plug it too heavily, but it does give good context. And I think both of these bills complement themselves. That's why I chose this one to be our next one here, is because if the legislature is saying there are only two genders and those are set, right? You get those at birth. They're not something you can change. Then why would you fund procedures that, air quotations, claim to transition a person if you've already said that there's not such thing as transitioning and there are only two genders and they are set? So in one way, this is the legislature being, I would argue, consistent. And that's an encouraging thing. Oftentimes, I'm guilty of it, and I think it's well warranted that our lawmakers sometimes can get a reputation of maybe being bumbling idiots. But the more you get to interact with them, they're human beings too. The problem is, welcome to government. And if you have a bunch of human beings in a room that are all sinners, you get some interesting outcomes and sometimes issues occur. But I think this would be a good example of where the legislative body, for at least 2024, we'll see what ends up after the primary here, is being consistent with their beliefs. They're saying, okay, there are only two genders. Well, if there are only two genders, and we're being logically consistent, then therefore, why on earth would, as a state, if that's our legal definition, that's the vernacular, the dictionary of the state, why would we continue to fund a thing that is antithetical to the thing we just affirmed in the same session?
Yeah, which does make sense. And that's one of the things that we hope for from our legislators is that they be consistent. I know in my personal life, that's a thing I'm a stickler for, either with my children, with my profession, with my faith, with how we run the house, with how I deal with friends and family. Like, consistency is key. And so that's super important. And not only consistent, but logically consistent. So you're logically taking one step after the other, which is something that as a society, we've kind of moved away from. And
we
so
struggle with it.
We struggle with it tremendously. And so it's good. It makes me glad that as Idahoans, we are having our law affirm a set of logically consistent statements.
Right.
Because if you're not logically consistent, if you have no firm foundation to stand upon, then, well, you can choose to do whatever you want.
Right.
And so we in Idaho are stating that, hey, there is a firm foundation, and this is where it's starting. Now, like we talked about last week with the two genders bill, is the language exactly as we would like it to be? No. But, and this is a thing that I keep coming back to, baby steps is, small steps in the right direction is movement in the right direction. And hopefully our legislators will continue pushing in that direction. What makes me a little nervous is that they'll be like, wow, we got the bills passed. We're good. We'll move on to other things now. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen. And I know enough of our legislators, or know of them, to know that they're not going to sit on their laurels. But
it takes a majority.
It takes a majority, and it's a fear. And the alphabet carousel is really powerful.
It is.
And they hold a lot of sway for some reason. And so that is a thing that we do need to be consistently on our legislators about, is that they continue moving forward with doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, with that theme of consistency, and here again, whole reason, local yokels exists, right? One is to have you get involved in the local realm of things socially. So different farmers markets, cool events, hikes, different cool things about Idaho, right? But obviously another thing that we do a lot of is politics as well, because we do truly believe that you need both of them to be a well-rounded citizen in your local community. And if there is that fear, the legislatures, in my opinion, are only as good as the people that continue to keep them accountable. If there's no one keeping them accountable,
yeah,
you might have the best legislatures, and there are many that I love dearly, but without accountability, we as human beings really struggle. And so, yes, baby steps is the way it often goes with politics. Some of us are frustrated, some of us don't like it. But with this, if you're feeling like, great, let's keep this momentum going, I think this passage of this bill and the last one should be an encouragement to anyone that maybe has been involved in politics or on the sidelines thinking it's a hopeless endeavor. There are things moving forward, and that's part of what we wanted to do with this series, is to encourage people to be like, no, there are good bills that were signed. There is positive. We need to look at the good side. We're really good at looking at the negative. We can do that very, very well. And kind of on that, then pivoting, there's the good side of it. I think we got this bill down the line, and we should continue to keep encouraging our legislatures and keeping them accountable and keep them on the straight and narrow. Like we talked about last week and John alluded to, this bill there's room for improvement on the definition of men and women if you're coming from a more classical and less materialistic perspective. Because, spoiler alert, the way that the bill defines it is men and women are defined by their reproductive components, which we're not saying isn't a part of that equation. It is. It definitely is a thing that differentiates the sexes. But from that classical perspective, it is not purely the thing that defines us. That really the thing... We're both body and soul. We're not just matter. And so when you're coming up with a definition, and this would be my appeal here, especially related to this bill, is, okay, if we're just doing that, and you're saying, well, you can't have these surgeries or different things or whatever else or something because you don't want to change the gender. What if they figure out a way where they're like, no, look, according to your legal definition, we're able to perfectly change the gender. We are. The parts that we changed over are allowing that person to do the reproductive things. I don't know how well it's going to go, but say a man gets to that point, because we're ever advancing forward, and, if we're playing a little bit of mad scientist here, right, then that definition, that's where you start to see the implications of that definition starting to fall apart, because this is a really great argument if we believe that matter is all there is. But I would appeal to you, and a good chunk of human history would agree with me here in understanding, is that no, you're not all matter. Even the pagans in the past knew that there is body and there is soul. So that would be kind of the one side. You have the gold, the good part about this, and then the part where it has a foundation, which is that past bill, and it must be necessary to uphold it there, or everything kind of goes out the window. But kind of bringing that then to our last point I wanted to kind of give here in an application here is how will this affect you, right? Who cares? You're saying, okay, who cares if someone gets a surgery? Who cares if they get this difference or change thing? What does that really matter to me? Why are we passing bills on this? Just leave me alone type of thing. Well, the key thing I would say for you is, one, your money's going where you want it to go. You're going to pay tax dollars either way, unless you're someone who's trying to evade it.
Yep.
That's its own equation. I leave that in your court, good sir, whoever's doing that. But either way, you're being affected in some way because you're paying tax dollars. And if this bill wasn't signed, we'll put it that way, or didn't exist before, then the gateway was open that, yeah, part of your paycheck, part of the groceries, the fuel you get are going towards something that I would argue most Idahoans don't approve of and really, really don't like. So that would be one area where I'd say the effect on you, an Idahoan, is knowing that your money for once may be being spent in a better place. The government, sometimes that's its own tricky thing to see if they'll actually achieve that. But that would be the first kind of application on that. And then maybe the second one.
Well, can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned earlier is the positives that we're seeing. And Andrew Breitbart used to, he had a saying, and it's been picked up by a lot of people, that politics is downstream of culture, right? And so what we're seeing, at least here in Idaho, is the politics being downstream of what culture is here in Idaho. So the politics are that we're defining men and women. We're saying that you can't use public money to have gender-altering surgeries. Well, where is the culture on that? Well, Target, and we're talking now nationwide, but right. Idaho is a piece of that. Target, there was a big controversy over their Pride event, and they had big Pride displays, and they were selling.
Which were just on the footsteps of it.
Yeah, exactly. But there was a big backlash over that last year. And so this year, Target officially announced that they're only selling their LGBTQ plus themed products following, or let me find it in the article here. This is from NBC News. They said Thursday that they would be selling its Pride merchandise in a select number of its nearly 2,000 stores and on its website this year, citing historical sales performance. And in addition to LGBTQ themed home and food and beverage items, which I don't know why you need to drink out of a gay cup. I don't know what makes a cup gay, but
corporate America.
Anyway, yeah, right. No Pride apparel for children will be sold. So again, we're seeing culture really making changes here. And you can talk about Bud Light. Bud Light had its big controversy when they brought in what's
Dylan
his name?
Mulvaney.
Yeah, Dylan Mulvaney. What's their name? I guess is the proper way to be ambiguous here. But they brought in Dylan Mulvaney, and Bud Light's stock, or Anheuser-Busch's stock, has just dropped. And maybe not their stock, but their sales and their volume, it just keeps dropping. Because we as Americans said enough is enough. And so what we see is that culture continues pushing back against the nonsense at this point. And so it's exciting to see, and this is where I wanted to go to, took a long way to get there, but it's exciting to see that the culture is changing away from people being like, yeah, I don't care, whatever, to no, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to put my money where my beliefs are. I'm not going to buy stuff from Target. I'm not going to buy stuff from Anheuser-Busch. I'm going to be a little bit more careful with my purchases. And there are large companies that are losing lots of money for that. And so we're seeing politics change because we're seeing culture change. And that's really where I wanted to go with this. And so it's exciting for me to see our Idaho legislatures moving in that direction, because that means that culture has been and continues to change, which is super exciting.
Right. And for anyone out there, I know in the Treasure Valley, maybe up north, you've probably, I know I have, but there again, I don't know, maybe they have a sixth sense. I've made sure to keep my address off things, that I'm political, and so they've sent me a boatload. I swear every day I come home from work and there's more flyers. So I'm going to make this as brief as possible, but this would be an encouragement to you there again. If you like the laws and the way that this is going with the legislature, as we're going through these bills or ones we've done in the past that you've really liked, go see who sponsored those. Is the incumbent the one that's done that? or have they fought against it, right?
Right.
Not saying, the devil that you know and the devil you don't know, right? That equation often happens in a lot of races over the state. But if you're agreeing with this and you really like it and Idaho's going in the proper direction, then I really would encourage you, this comes out on Sunday, so Tuesday, to go vote. And then, the last point to wrap this all up would be for me, and I think it's something that from a Christian perspective should also be considered about this is something that is good for poor people. What I mean by that is the average person that's on Medicaid. I'm not saying everyone on Medicaid is poor, right? Because that bracket gets larger, it seems, every year. But most of the time, if a poor person is going to have some medical insurance, it's going to be Medicaid. And usually poor people, they're in a vulnerable spot. They're worried. They're frustrated. There's a lot of things that are going on there, right? And I'm not trying to patronize someone that has less or more money. But when you're in that state, there is a certain level of vulnerability that you might make decisions that you wouldn't have otherwise. And for Medicaid to be like, oh yeah, we'll help you do a gender transition. We'll help you do this. We'll help you do that. That's not good. That's not good at all because it's a life-altering thing that person's doing, and it's destructive. I don't think I've seen any numbers that could back up that getting a gender transition, what they call gender transition, or certain body part altering, we'll put it that way, really results in really solving the core problem, which me as a Christian, I would say that's your heart, your soul, your relation to your creator. But even if you don't want to agree with that and you want to go with something more broad like Jordan Peterson does, your relationship to that higher power, or just clean your room, right? Getting a gender transition and focusing your entire life on your sexuality and a surgery that you had is not good. And so if we can discourage or just be like, hey, it's one thing, I guess, if someone has a bunch of money, I would want to discourage them as well. But it's another thing when there's someone who's poor and vulnerable to let them or give them the resources to be able to do something like that. So with that said, very heavy thing, but our next story will be much lighter, and I made sure of that. Hey there, if you've enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe or follow us on YouTube, Rumble, or Twitter. That way you stay up to date on all things Idaho. For even more content and to support our work, check out our locals page. If you found our content valuable, please like and share it with friends and family. Your support helps us spread the word about our beautiful state and keeps Idahoans informed and engaged. Thank you for being part of the local yokel Idaho community. Now, back to the show. So this next segment, as I teased, a lot more of an upliftful one. Great Idaho migration, Memorial Day travels. So we've been talking about a lot of pretty heavy topics, but here at Local Yokel Idaho, we try our best to balance the deep and political stuff with more fun and interesting things, and we do try to do that, but definitely lately it's been really busy with the political stuff. So in the interest of that, here's a story we'll be talking about that is something fun, Memorial Day. A day to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice, a little deeper, but on the funner side, it's also a day to do extra fun stuff with friends and family and just have a longer weekend. But with that 3D weekend, one of the most common things people do for Memorial Day is get out of Dodge, especially me on this one. In this segment, we'll be looking at the great travel adventures that Idahoans appear to be going on. So first off, John, would you like to read a report there that the AAA has given us where they've kind of tried to look at what Idahoans are going to be doing for Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah. So, and for those of us who are a little bit younger and doesn't quite know what AAA is, AAA is a car, I don't know.
It's like an assistant thing where you write down the side of the road and they'll help you and all that.
Yeah, they're not quite insurance, but they do a lot of good stuff. And they used to, back before the Google Maps and even GPS were a thing. And for anybody who's older, you would know this. You can go to the AAA store, tell the person where you're traveling, and they would give you a triptych, which is kind of a
blast from the past.
Yeah, it was a road by road breakdown or a turn by turn breakdown of how you're going to get from point A to point B. It was basically Google directions before Google directions were a thing. So AAA. It was actually really cool. But anyway, AAA also does a lot of surveys and they collect a lot of data these days because, they have to do something still to stay afloat. So what AAA has done recently is they've collected a bunch of numbers. And so starting off nationally, there's 43.8 million Americans that will be traveling more than 50 miles this Memorial weekend, which is up from 1.8 million last year. That's a big increase. Wow. That's a lot.
It's massive.
Anyway, yeah, that's insane. As I'm reading that, that's holy cow. Anyway, the report made a little bit of a note that this is very interesting in light of how economically people seem more tight on money than they were last year. It's almost as if people are saying, you know what, screw it. We're going to go travel and I don't really care. But anyway,
Right.
So keeping it on the positive side, because screw it, I don't really care. I don't know. But in Idaho, AAA estimates that 262,000 Idahoans will be traveling for the holiday. For some context here, Idaho's population is 1.93 million, which means roughly 14% of the state will be traveling somewhere over the weekend. Now, the next logical question then is, where is everyone going? Well, AAA took a swing at this as well. They're reporting that the top place Idahoans will be traveling will be Anaheim, California, and then following descending order by the following. So first you have Anaheim, then Salt Lake, Las Vegas, Yellowstone, or Grand Teton National Park, which I'm with you there, Orlando, Florida, Honolulu, Hawaii, the Oregon coast, Seattle, Phoenix, and Denver, which a lot of those are interesting. I don't quite know why California is the top. Actually,
The amount of people moved here probably, and they're wanting to go visit family with that 3-day weekend.
yeah, well, and that's also probably why the Oregon coast and Seattle are on the list, is because there are a lot of people with family back in those places, and they don't want to live in those places for,
Right.
mainly pretty obvious reasons, but they still have people they like there, and they grew up there, so they have good memories, so you go visit. So I get it. The ones I understand even better, though, is, well, I guess Salt Lake's probably on that list too, but Salt Lake is actually
Especially
really cool.
with
There's a lot of,
families.
yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff down in and around Salt Lake. But Yellowstone and Grand Teton,
Sign
that's a cool
me
place,
up.
right?
That's what I would do.
I wouldn't say Honolulu. I would say
Well, you
go to
have
the
some
Big Island.
personal experience there. You've actually been... Okay, I'm going to try to not say this as an Idahoan because I constantly get the lake and the mountain range. We have the Owyhee Mountains. That's how you say it. And then you have Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Because when I was younger, I would always just say them the same. Yeah, you have the Owyhee Mountains and you have Hawaii.
So yeah, no, my wife and I, we honeymooned on the Big Island, and it was awesome and so much more cool than the other islands. Like, the big touristy spots are exactly that. They're big touristy spots and everybody goes there. But if you want to like really experience a really cool island, go to the what is it, the Hilo side of Hawaii, the Big Island, which is actually called Hawaii.
John is the resident pronunciator. Whenever I can't quite figure out how to say a thing, I'll be like, John, did I get it right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so go to the Hilo side. It is the Hilo side, which is the not touristy side of the Big Island. It's a bunch of rainforests. It's a bunch of black sand beaches. There was a green sand beach that we went to.
Whoa. Hold up.
Yeah,
What?
green
Like
sand.
algae, like green, or the actual rocks were green?
No, like not algae green. Like the sand was a green hue.
Like dark or light?
It was like a light green.
Okay. Like limestone green, and you turn it up a little bit?
Yeah. Well, and let's see.
John's
The
a go
Mahana,
hunting.
the Mahana Beach. Where'd it go? Big Island Hikes. Yep. This is the. All right, here we go. How's my Hawaiian? The Papakolea.
If anybody could do it, it'll be John.
Yeah, the Papakolea Green Sand Beach in Idaho, or not Idaho, on the Big Island in Hawaii.
Maybe it's in the Owyhee Mountains.
Yes, in the Owyhee Mountains. Dude, and swimming there was awesome. This says swimming is possible, but the surf is quite strong. Dude, the waves there were fun. I did a lot of body surfing. My wife wasn't super happy because I was just playing in the water for...
We got married, and you're like, spend time with me.
See ya, I'm playing in the water. Dude, it was so much fun. This doesn't say why they are there.
Throw it at perplexity.
All right, fine.
Well, John's looking for that. I do have to admit, something that people described, and I've yet to experience it. And I know it's a thing, but for me, my Idahoan brain just can't wrap my head around it, is the idea of being able to go to a body of water that's not a hot spring and it's warm. The idea of going to the ocean and being like, oh, I'm going to swim, and it's warm and it's like comfortable to be in, is such a foreign concept to me. It doesn't quite click. I've heard people tell me, oh yeah, you go to Hawaii. There we go. I got it. You go to Hawaii and you can just go out swimming and it's warm and it's nice. And I'm like, no, it's cold. Water is cold. Water comes from the sky cold. The bodies of water are cold. Water is cold. The only time it's not is when it's coming out of the Earth's crust.
Nope, it definitely warms up. Although, having lived again on the Eastern Shore, at least in Virginia and Maryland, when the water is really warm, don't go swimming because there's probably lots of jellyfish. So that's a thing, and it's gross.
Right.
So let's see. All right, so I put it into Perplexity, and it answered, because AI, it does things. I'm still fighting this. I probably shouldn't. But anyway, so the Papacolia Beach, there I said it again, is located near South Point on the Big Island of Hawaii. The sand gets its distinctive green color from olivine crystals that erode out of the surrounding volcanic cone.
Huh.
And it is awesome. I should share my screen here because I can do that because we're on the same thing.
Da 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 da.
There, I'm going to share that. So this is the green sand beach.
Oh my goodness.
Like green.
It almost seems wrong.
Oh, it's weird.
Like,
yeah, and they're like
I'm looking
little,
at my teleprompter. It's not perfect, but it almost looks like lawn.
Yeah, like a nicely manicured lawn.
Yeah.
Like really, really close cropped grass that's like slightly dying.
It's
but not quite.
Californian
Yeah.
grass.
Californian grass. Yeah, that's true. Now this is probably a better picture of what it looks like on a bright day, where it's, it just kind of looks like dark sand.
Right.
But so that's like the green sand, but then you have black sand beaches as well.
Those are crazy.
Dude.
It seems like something, I don't know why, but my brain, anytime I think of like a black sand beach, it reminds me of like Vikings or whatever, probably because of the Dragons of Berk, because I think there's one of the battle scenes, they're like a black sand or whatever, or pebbles or something, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're amazing. The house we stayed at while we were there was literally minutes away. No, it was like a 3-minute walk to a little black sand beach, and we were there like every day. Now, the fun thing was it was also apparently a nudist beach.
No.
As anybody who's been to a nudist beach knows, the people that get nude there, they're not the good-looking people. They're the old people. Yeah. So you can imagine the antics that happened with old people and being naked on the beach. Right. And it's awesome. So anyway, that's long story short, or bringing it all the way back. I can understand a lot of the locations on this list. Hawaii and the Grand Tetons being top of that. But Tyler, do you have any plans? I don't. We're probably not doing much of anything. But
Right.
Do you have any plans?
I know for me, I'm probably going to go out with a friend for a trip that day, kind of go drive. So yes, I will be on the road, but I'm probably going to keep an eye. I might go across the border into Oregon. I don't know. My goal is to try to do some trip that's hopefully relaxing is the goal
Good
for
luck.
it. So whatever that may end up being, that might be something that's just driving. Maybe we'll stop somewhere and do some stuff, but kind of going to do just a little bit of a day trip to get out and things. Granted, the weekend, that's all full of different stuff for Memorial, but the actual day of Memorial, I found usually in years past, if you want to do something, generally, if you want to do something with Memorial, do it on the actual day, because everyone has either left on Saturday or whatever else, and they're coming back like Sunday or whatever. So if you're going out and coming in on the same day and just do a day trip on Monday, it's great. It's fine. And usually it isn't too hectic or crazy or stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. Granted, if you're wanting to stay in the state of Idaho and travel because of all those 13% of people that are considering rolling that around, if you haven't quite made your decision, maybe staying a little exploring home, because watching the show, we talk about some of the amazing stuff that does exist in the state. One that I would recommend if it's really hot is going over to Stanley. We've talked about that in a couple different episodes. It's a really pretty drive to go over there. If you want to go the longest way, you can go over towards like Haley and Ketchum and then come back around through Mackey so you can see the craters of the moon and then come in that way and see it. And then you don't have to go the really windy bit. But if you want to go the quicker way, you can get from Stanley, from Boise, in I think 2 hours, maybe under, something like that. So that might be options if you want something more cool. I posted on Twitter, I reposted someone or liked someone's comment that lives up there because there's still snow there right now, like a foot or two of it. there in that valley.
Nice.
Granted, it's 82. So if you want something cooler, that's an option. Also, the name of the place that I get mixed up with Hawaii, Oahe, in the Murphy area. If you like green, that would be probably a great place to go because this time of year, it's probably the greenest it's going to get before it starts browning with the heat and stuff. So, you know, if there's the wind, you can go out there and just see for miles and miles and see it rolling. So if you want just a nice drive to see some really pretty views, let alone if it's raining a little bit that day, that will also probably be a good one. If there's a small town nearby in the Treasure Valley you want to go to, here again, a lot of these are more in the southern part of the state. Emmett, really great option to do that if you want to go see some of those things. We've talked about in other episodes about things over in eastern Idaho, like the Clean Museum or something you could do a trip for. Or maybe if you're over in eastern, you can come over a little bit more western. Another one that's also great is any of the backcountry and stuff. Granted, I would probably, if you're in eastern Idaho or even Boise, maybe stay away from Haley and Ketchum or the Salmon area because I have a feeling with Memorial Day, those places are going to be
packed.
Insane. Especially, I don't know how many celebrities are going to be flying to their places there in Ketchum and Haley, which will bring its own entourage of things. But who knows? If you're fine with the crowds, who knows? You might run into someone pretty cool. But if you want somewhere to go where you can guarantee you're not going to have a lot of humanity, just drive the backcountry. There's so many times that I'll look at a general route and then there'll be a branch or area or like offshoot and I'll be like, okay, let's go do that. And you just kind of go off a little bit and you're not doing it for time. You're just kind of exploring and it can be really rewarding, especially in Idaho. Most people are really nice, kind of going the backcountry. You'll meet a lot of really interesting people. And sometimes if you know what you're looking for, some really cool places to eat. But in any case, I hope you guys have that great memorial and also have a wonderful rest after the legislative session. With that said, thank you so much for tuning into the entire show. I hope you found it both enjoyable and informative. If we missed anything important or got anything wrong, please reach out to us via email at lyimedia@protonmail.com or on Twitter @LocalYocalIdaho. We appreciate your support and feedback as we work to bring you the most interesting and important stories from across Idaho. That's all for now. Have a great rest of your week and Godspeed.